Hello YouTube, VGH once again with another deck review video. We found this deck in our last Limitless TCG tournament that we were in. Luxray Miraidon Turbo. So, funny enough, this deck was insane. In the tournament it went 6-3. I'm sure it could have gone a little bit better. I had the person who talked to me about it basically say they just opened poorly, and when I started playing the deck, I loved everything about it except one card. That will be Iron Hands. Now, based upon what the meta looks like, Iron Hands can be super effectively useful or not useful at all, and I can show you the dichotomy of how useful it can be versus how useful it can't be. Say opening it, you don't have any retreat costs, you don't have Switch, you don't have Arven, you don't have Prime Catcher, whatever it is. Yes, it looks like you have a lot of outs, but realistically it will be stuck on the board, you can't get rid of it, and it's a 4-cost retreat, which you do not have the answer for. So I pulled that. My list is a little bit different, but in case you guys want to see the original list, there you go. This is what it looked like. This is how I started with it, and then the end of list is in the description below. So, the quick of this is that Eri is insane, being able to remove your opponent's item cards from their hand. Teaming up with Luxray, if you get lucky, you hit Eri, you remove 2 items. Luxray hits another card out of their hand, like a supporter, like Boss's Orders. You can remove up to 3 cards from their hand in one move. With a lot of the evolution-based decks, the Prime Catchers and the Boss's Orders bring up their weaker Pokemon that haven't evolved yet, and that way Luxray can still do its 120, take a prize, and remove a card from your opponent's hand. Getting that knowledge of what your opponent has in their hand into your brain is just wildly informationally good. If you just know what you have to do with it, like what you have to do to get around what they have, it just feels so good. I changed out the Iron Hands to a Raikou V. Raikou V start feels great. You're able to get that free draw power from its ability Fleetfoot. Zapdos getting that plus 10 damage. If you start perfectly and you go second, even against things like Raging Bolt, which has 240 HP, a Miraidon is able to swing for 220, plus the extra 10 from Zapdos, and plus the extra 10 from Vitality Band. Does give you that option to swing all the way up to 240 damage, base damage, on your first turn. So going first or second still feels really good with this list. Miraidon gives you the opportunity to get basically your whole bench filled in just a singular move with one Nest Ball. You can go Nest Ball, Miraidon, Miraidon searches Miraidon and 1 Pokemon. That Miraidon searches 2 more Pokemon, and suddenly you have 4 Pokemon on the board. The Grabber gives you value because it can also take away evolution pieces. The Iono allows you to control the board state, and you also run the one of basic Luxray because of Energy Crush, which does 50 damage times the amount of energy on your opponent's board, or the 110, but it's usually meant for the Energy Crush, which you're going to see a little bit later in this video. If you like what you see, make sure you give a quick like to the video, and make sure you just say something in the comments about the deck. Tell me if you liked it, tell me if you guys think there's something else that maybe could be thrown in here that might make it even a little bit better. Like I said though, this is just the base deck. If you guys want to see the deck that I used, take a look in the description below. Alright, and this is just us cutting straight to the gameplay video. Now, these are in 2x speed. I ran every one of these games. These first ones are actually from my stream when we were testing the deck on stream. That's why you can see all the little characters running around. So it might be a little bit difficult to do the play-by-play and show you what's in my hand, but I'll try my best to keep up. Later in the video, there'll be more that are just standard video. Our first match here, on stream, we were up against Teal Mask Ogerpon and Reggie Drago. This tournament, this was happening when I was in my tournament with a Reggie Drago deck, so I was like a little on the fence of like, I want my new deck to do well, but also if I win this, it's like beating myself. So my opponent is starting out with a standard Reggie Drago build. They're using the Teal Mask Ogerpon in order to have a draw engine, in order to get all those energies on the board. They also run Energy Switch in order to move energies from the Teal Mask Ogerpons over to Reggie Drago. The Miraidon is used to set up the rest of your board. Obviously, we don't run too many. We only run a maximum of 2, because we run enough Nest Balls to set up everything else. One Nest Ball can get you another Miraidon, and then that way you can search out a total of 4 benched Pokemon in just with one Pokemon ability. Miraidon, very powerful Pokemon in any electric deck. It does take us a little bit of time to set up. We do run a Rotom in our deck because it is able to get us that early game draw power, filling up our hand, making it more of a threat, helping us find those rare candies for our Luxrays in order to work really, really well. Our turn 1 was pretty solid. We were able to get a Miraidon with 3 energies on the bench. Drago is able to hit 220, but it also needs to set up a bit, so we do have a little bit of time to work with it. So instead of trying to rush things like getting Raikou onto the board to attack, we instead went with the safer strategy of setting up a Miraidon who's able to hit that 220 to knock out any of the Teal Mask Ogerpons. My opponent is using the Legacy Star ability, discarding the top 7 cards of their deck in order to take 2 cards from their discard pile, any 2 cards, including the ones they discarded, and put them into his hand. Basically, the idea is getting out those energy searches, setting up his board, and hopefully getting some good Pokemon in the discard pile for him to use Reggie Drago's attack. As you saw there, I'm looking through my opponent's discard pile to have a good idea of what they may have. They're using Mew in order to reset their hand to 3, and then very rudely throwing an Iono to butcher my hand back to 6 after using my Rotom ability. Does put me a little bit behind, but we do have Arven as a recovery option. Arven is able to search us a free item and a free tool. The reason we run that Rotom with Arven's is because we also run Forest Sealstone. And for those of you who don't know, it is a V-Star item that allows you to attach to a Pokemon who's a V and use it as a V-Star item to get any card out of your deck. My opponent is looking through his discard pile in order to see what attacks he can use. He did go for, that was, what's his name? Miraidon's move, which does 60 damage to himself, putting him at 220. I thought he was going to use the Giratina to knock out, but the moment he didn't, I was flabbergasted. Now, I am putting in my hand a Rare Candy for Sealstone, so that way we can try and set up the Luxray. I did notice here that I did have Baby Luxray in the hand with Energy Crush. It does 50 damage times the amount of energies, and I immediately went, wait a sec, we have an energy, we have a Rare Candy, we have Luxray. We can use Photon Blaster here and knock it out, or we can save a 2-prizer and instead just do the 250 Energy Crush. Because once I knock this guy out, I'm taking away 150 damage, making the Luxray that I just made completely worthless. So I'd rather give him a 1-prize trade, and that way I still have either Luxray, if he sets up Reggie Drago, he's going to put another 3 energy on the board for 200 damage, or Miraidon with 220 damage. Either way, I was set for just a couple of good turns. Although you do see that I put Iron Hands on the board, I figured I was going to use Iron Hands in the matchup because there was a Squawkabilly. I don't, and it does make it that kind of an issue. Luckily this time, I had an out with Arven, and I also just top-decked Prime Catcher, so I'm able to just take whatever I want and blow it, blow it up. So, goodbye Teal Mask Ogerpon, 220 damage. We will be thinning our deck a little bit because we have the free cards. Since we're not using Choice Belt, we're not using Vitality Belt all that much in this matchup. I went with the Rescue Band just so that way I can kind of set myself up a little bit for the future plays. Once again, Electric Generator, I just didn't want Iron Hands to get stuck in the active with no ability. So since I had the double turbos in my hand, I just went for the swing with 1 energy. So hopefully maybe if I get another Electric Energy and another... And then a double turbo turn, I can set it all up, but right now, Rescue Board double turbo on the Iron Hands was my safety play because I was able to retreat it at that point, but Iron Hands was really making me have to play in a defensive manner for myself, but my opponent sees it as an aggressive manner because I've taken out 2 of his prizes. Unfortunately, with that, I lost my hand again, and now I'm just stuck. Although doesn't matter. My opponent had no way about it to get the energy needed for Reggie Drago, and we took a win. Victory for me. And then we go straight into our next round. We also did this one during our stream, as you guys can really see, like the characters running around tell you when I was streaming this game and when I switch over to off-stream games. It looks as though, actually, I'm looking at my side of it. I did win that round of Reggie Drago in the tournament, and then we played this. So. And then, of course, I open Iron Hands, so it's the absolute worst outcome I could possibly have gotten, because now it's just stuck in the active. I have a Rescue Board, which works on everything else inside my entire deck except for him. We are waiting for our opponent to start setting up. This was a fun game, by the way. I was in casuals because I was waiting for the next round to begin. But we saw Ghastly and Ekans, and I was very much excited by the gameplay here because I was like, ooh, energy movement? Ooh, hand disruption? What do we do? What do we do here? Unfortunately, even in 2x speed, my opponent played a little slow here. So doing the turns and such was just trying our best. And I hope you enjoyed that Iono. That was the only like stadium, or that was the only support card I found for like ever. And my opponent did not do much better. We were both just sitting here until somebody could start doing something. I was hoping he knocked out Iron Hands quicker than how he did. Honestly, I should have increased the speed of this video by like 3 or 4 times because this guy would not swing with the 70. He just kept poisoning, burning, and confusing me, which only did 30 damage per turn at max, and sometimes I'd heal the burn, so like when I went back to his turn it would only do 10 instead of 30, so like I was trying not to attack with the Iron Hands anyway because I didn't want it in the active, but this is just bad. My opponent is just benching everything, evolving all of his Pokemon, having all the time in the world to do whatever he wants, while I sit here and just go, please? Switch. Arven, come on. One of you guys gotta show up so I can get the thing. Prime Catcher, I don't care. I was able to set up Raikou, look at my board, go, that's nice, bye. My opponent, again, Panic Poison, which burns, confuses, paralyzes the active. I am slowly just burning to death. I'm looking at my opponent's hand. Cool. What's that gonna do? The good information about using Eri, though, even in that situation where I couldn't do anything anyway, I threw it because of the off chance I did hit something. But I also got knowledge of his hand. Now that I know he's got a boss's orders, I know I have to play around it too, because if I put up a bad thing and my hand isn't set up or whatever, then how am I supposed to win the matchup? I have Luxray in my hand. I'm just looking for an option. So I go Miraidon, tandem unit brings out Rotom. Rotom allows me to draw some cards so I can start moving. Again, though, if I find Switch before Iron Hands explodes, then great, I can save 2 prizes. But, like... So my opponent played Raikou there, which is look at the top 4, take 2 of them, put them in your hand, and take the other 2 and put them on the bottom of your deck. So... That was a genuine, like, I don't know, maybe he just didn't have a better supporter, but, like, at least he found something. I did, on the other hand, find Arven, forgetting about Gengar's ability there, by the way, where if you put an energy down from your hand onto a Pokemon, it does 2 damage counters, so that was cool. We are using Rare Candy, so we can finally do that Rare Candy into the Shinx, because we know he's got boss's orders, and I know he was going to bring back the Iron Hands if I didn't do this. We were able to remove that boss's orders from his hand, and that basically was the linchpin moment of the game. Because even if I got Iron Hands out, he was able to, like, if it was going to burn, or, it was going to burn me and poison me or whatever, and knock it out, I would have to put in a Pokemon in a bad opportunity, and he would use boss's orders to bring up a Pokemon that would be bad for me, like Rotom or Miraidon, who couldn't attack. Or even Shinx and get a free prize off of it. But now I have 310 HP, I'm burned, confused, whatever. It didn't matter at this point because we finally got Iron Hands off of the active spot. So we decided, alright, well, funny enough, we ball. We retreat, we bring up the Shinx, we flip the coin for 30 damage, we hit it, get the 30 damage, knock out the Arbok, and we pop off. My opponent's finally going to throw in the Gengar, and the Gengar is a little bit spooky, don't get me wrong. He's able to remove it, he's able to move energies, he chose not to. With Gengar's Tricky Step, it does 2 energy, 160. You can move an energy off the active Pokemon and put it onto one of your opponent's bench Pokemon anywhere you want. Which I think we'll see later. Luckily for me, though, I see an Arven play. So I go Arven, I get that Rescue Board, so I have that free retreat on everybody except for Iron Hands. We just take this easy 200 damage, and we start setting up our Luxray. So now we have a Luxray that can do 250 damage. Maybe I didn't mention it at this point, but Luxray is able to do 250 damage for 2 electric energies, and its downside is that you have to discard all the energies attached to this Pokemon in order to do that. Its other attack is 2 colorless energies for 120. Look at your opponent's hand, discard 1 card you find there. My opponent was generous enough to move the energy over to Rotom. Thanks. So I just do the free retreat, push in my Luxray, because Luxray can still hit 120 since it has 2 regular lightning energies on it, and then discard the only card in my opponent's hand. Nifty, got rid of a dark energy. Didn't really matter, but at least he doesn't have it. Now, we did do the math on the Luxray play, because if he got very lucky on that, and I got very lucky that he whiffed. But he only does 160, doesn't knock me out. He can move the energy, but I already had an energy in my hand. And we were able to get a second Luxray down. So even if he takes this first Luxray down, I'm still able to get another Luxray on the board. Now, we're just removing some cards from the deck so that way we have the ability to, like, thin a little bit, try and find more energies, more ways of getting stuff out. Because at this point, it didn't really matter. I already used Star Alchemy. I don't know why I looked at it again. We place down our energies. Boop. We remove, and I don't care about the little bit of damage. This way he can't knock out Luxray for 2 prizes, because I was afraid of the 2 prizes. We hit the 120 first, because he still, like I said, can't knock out Luxray with another 160 move. Yes, he can move energies around, but at the same time, we were still kind of set up regardless. I actually did math on Rotom to see if I could actually use Rotom to attack, so it was kind of just funny. We get that clutch Electric Generator, get our retreat off, and we bring out our Raikou, get a free draw, get another energy generator, which we didn't feel like using, takes our knockout, and if we look at our opponent's board, they have nothing left. This game is realistically over. Best case scenario, my opponent got an energy there, and then he was able to poison, burn, confuse me, but thank goodness both of his crushing hammers whiffed, or else that could have been really bad for us. My opponent did concede. I was trying to get Luxray to set up again for 250. Alright. Up against our next opponent here. My opponent will go first. My opening hand was pretty funny. Only got Raikou in the active, but hey, of all Pokemon, Raikou's pretty solid. Now, as you can see, the characters are all gone, so this is no longer a streamed match. This was a off-game match, off-stream match, which is really neat for us because we did change the deck at this point, so we have 2 Raikous, no Iron Hands getting in our way. Our board looked so bad. 4 energies, and 2 Arvens and an Iono. We're just trying our best. We did get our Nest Ball, and this is the fun part of the deck. 1 Arven gets a Nest Ball, which gets a Miraidon, which gets Rotom, which can get Forest Sealstone on Rotom because of the Arven, and then we're able to use Star Alchemy to search other things. If I wanted to, I could have went with a Nest Ball into Miraidon, Miraidon into Miraidon and Rotom, and then use the second Miraidon to fill my entire bench, if I wanted to. We decided to set up the Shinx rather than setting up the Raikou in the active, mainly because I wanted to start eating cards out of his hand if possible, because if we hit any amount of rare candies, it would be a fun time for me. So we actually manually set up the Shinx. We were okay with our hand due to the other Arven we had, and I think we had a Luxray in there. So we were able to just search out rare candy and get off the what we were going for. Now we're going to try and thin, so we just pull everything we can out of the deck. And then go with a free draw off the Raikou. Raikou doesn't really get us anywhere, so we go with the energy play. And we're going to try and highball this, bringing out his Dracolac. If we knock this out and we get the value off of it, it's going to be pretty good. We only needed 1 of 2 cards. We have 3 Rare Candies and 3 Luxray EXs in the deck, so either way, we can use Forest Sealstone to get 1 of them. Luckily, I just got everything I needed for it anyway, so I was able to save the Forest Sealstone and Piercing Gaze this energy set up Dracolac. Looking at my opponent's hand, he had Dragapult and Ultra Ball, but if you got rid of Dragapult, use Ultra Ball to search. And if you got rid of Ultra Ball, you just already have Dragapult and Rare Candy. So I just hit the Rare Candy. So at that point, he's like, uh-oh. He top decks Dracolac, because that wasn't in his hand. So I know the rest of the cards in his hand, including a boss's orders, which is great because I assumed he was going to use bosses on Zapdos, but I have the double turbo to retreat if he did that. He set up his board quite nicely. We don't have another bosses. If we did, we'd be able to get that Dracolac in the back and then shoot it again. So we saw the Zapdos, we saw his bosses. We knew it's a good idea for him to use it, so we knew we didn't have to worry about a supporter for that turn. And this just gives us the free Electric Generator, double turbo, just sets up all the things for us. I figured it was a little bit safer to set up the Raikou because in this instance, everything is weak and we know every card in his hand. So this was a snap play. I threw the Forest Sealstone and went, I can take bosses. But also I didn't think too hard and I was like, wait, but I know he's got Ultra Ball and Super Rod in hand, so I should just get rid of those. And I ate the last card out of his hand and that was it. Like, he couldn't go from there, so we win. Up to our next match. This is another run with our new deck. Again, we are off screen, so we actually have the new deck. The deck, once again, listed below if you want to try and test it out. Opening Raikou. Opening Raikou is always the best thing that you could do with this deck. If you open Miraidon, that's still good too. Just Rotom, I think, is like the worst thing. Shinx is fine if they take a knockout. Obviously, most of your deck is two prizers, so even a tier, like a one prize knockout makes it a little bit better for you, if anything, so you're kind of safe, even if they take out a Shinx. The worst is probably Rotom. So this is another major deck in the format. Outside of Dragapult, which we did get to see, another major deck in the format is Ancient Box, or Future Box, rather, as well. We also got to see, we didn't get to get a Gardevoir match, unfortunately, but the deck works really well on Gardevoir as well. It allows us to set up quick. It allows us to take knockouts. This is me just trying to figure out what I should do. Set up the Raikou. If I set up Raikou in the back, there's a % chance where I can use Generator in order to set it up, and then I have the switch in my hand or the main energy in my hand. So I wanted to keep the back row safe rather than the active. So, because obviously to take out the active, I lose the energy too. So this way I'm able to set up bench. My opponent starts with Explorer Guidance, which allows him to look at the top 6 cards in his hand, add 2 to his hand, and discard the rest. And then he hits an Ancient Drum, which I didn't Awakening Drum. Ancient Drum is what I call it because it's an Ancient card. Which allows him to draw 1 card for every Ancient on his board. And so he just rips 5 cards off that, so that was spooky. I figured my opponent would have a more solid board here, but Vitality is kind of Ancient Box's like one-trick pony where they're able to set up 2 Pokemon at once. We have our Luxray all set up. Congratulations me. We're able to just get a free draw. Oh, look, Iono, that's neat. Get a free switch in. I have an electric Pokemon, and you have a water Pokemon. So I hit for double damage. I figure, why not hit that double damage and go for your face, because I can start taking stuff out of your hands, like Professor Sada's Vitality. There it is. So this, if you look at his hand, he's really got nothing. He really needs his Professor Sada's Vitality to do almost anything. And getting rid of it just forces him to use that PAL pad in order to bring it back. And again, we did get a nice look at his hand. We saw that Super Rod. We saw quite a few cards that Eri is viable to hit. And since we're going to start taking things, sure. Now, he did have a Dark Energy in his hand, but he knew that he couldn't do a lot of damage. So instead of putting his Roaring Moon into the active, he just pushes up a Walking Wake, which is also still weak to water, by the way. Or weak to lightning, by the way. I'm circling it, too, to show it off. I don't know what his plan was. He also used PAL Pad to only put back the Vitality and not the Explorer's Guidance. Now, whether that's a good play or a bad play, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know the deck all that well, but what I do know is by not putting that back, it's one less card for him to use in terms of discarding things. He uses Artisan, which brings a basic Pokemon onto the bench from his deck to bring out Tatsugiri. Brings Tatsugiri to the active. Tatsugiri allows him to search the top 7 of his deck for a supporter, and he actually does get that Vitality, but because he already used his retreat for that turn, he's not going anywhere. So we're looking at his hand. We knew Ultra Ball didn't really do anything. Looking at his hand, he's got really nothing to play after that. But we can still use Piercing Gaze to remove the Tatsugiri. And obviously, the Ancient Box's entire play really is just Roaring Moon. So I figure, why not get rid of it? The only reason I backtrack and go after the other one is because he has nothing in his hand. So I figured if he just gets rid of Artizone, then he can just use the Pokemon Stop top 3 and then hit more Ancients to his discard pile or get good items that he could use. So I'm just controlling the board state by removing just one card. He hits me for 160, just like that Gengar did. And it still wasn't enough because he knew he couldn't go anywhere from there. So we just body that and move on. Alright, so Lemurin. Do you want to go first? Ooh, I got the coin flip on this one? I must not have been paying attention. My bad. I was apparently doing something. Oh, excellent. Oh, at least both of us had to redraw. Reminder, I shoot these like days apart, and I don't remember which games that I did well with, so all I remember is that I put them in. Oh, I put this in because it was a Snorlax deck. Okay, I think this is petty. This is definitely pettiness for me. Because, no offense to Snorlax players, I don't like Snorlax decks. They're not fun. I used Miraidon for Miraidon, so that way I'd only have Miraidon on the board, so that way we can just try and poke that 220 damage over and over and over again as much time as possible. Arven can also get me an escape board, which allows me to freely retreat one of them, so value. Unfortunately, I saved my generator, and then he hits me with an Eri, so that sucked. He hits me with a flute. He whiffs. He hits me with another flute. He whiffs again. His hand is 2 cards, and then our instant recharge. Cool, Arven. Allowing me to get anything I want, including Prime Catcher, because we know we can hit that Rotom, so we want to hit the Rotom. Forest Seal Stone is dead to us, so. Vitality Band does matter, so. Hi, Rotom. You know how many cards you got in your hand? 3? Yeah. He didn't have anything in his hand. He did not set up well. He had nothing to deal with my Miraidons. Just done. Easy. Easy game. And then my opponent will go first. Honestly, this deck I feel can go first or second, which is why I like the deck and why I wanted to make a video on it, because you do run Raikou and energy generators. So even if you go second, there is still a pretty good chance you on turn 1 can swing for at least 120 damage with a lot of these decks running around that are evolution based, like this Dreepy and Pidgeot deck, or Charizard, or Shinx PAL, anything that can really run rare candies. There's a lot of decks that want to go first because of that rare candy. We had Rotom in our active, which, like I said, is one of the worst openings you can get with this deck, but we were still able to use the Arven to search out the things that we want. We bring out Miraidon and Miraidon again for the full bench. Boom. Everything is just nifty and in play. We have the Forest Seal Stone. We have Electric Generator. There's just so many things we can do here. We go with the V-Star first because I want to try and pull something out of the deck to thin it just a smidgy bit more. We whiff until we don't whiff. And Raikou is fully set up. We get that retreat off, and we get Dreepy out of the active with a Fleet Foot and then a punch to the face. Fleet Foot, by the way, if nobody knows, it just allows you to draw the top card of your deck. If this Pokemon is in the active and is a special ability that's meant for the 3 dogs, all of them have it, Raikou, Entei, and Suicune. But Suicune's not in the game right now due to rotations. Basically, I hit that guy so hard with such a super strong board, everything just being set up that my opponent didn't know what to do. And he actually had to think really hard about his turn. Hitting with a Serena really, like, threw me off that he even had it. And then I saw him throw Kirin, Turo, and Rescue Board out. The Serena got him a good switch option to stop me from attacking again with Raikou right away. If I didn't have the energy or a switch option, it does bode poorly. Unfortunately for him, we also got Eri. So, goodbye, double rare candy. So I did set up the Shinx instead of going after the Pidgey. That is my own fault. I got really antsy. I got really excited about the Eri, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be funny if I hit even one rare candy." But we're fine still. We were able to set up still some other things and still get a quick draw off of the Rotom. Cool bosses. Hey, you know you have one card in your hand? Let me just remove your only draw engine, because my opponent just didn't find the barrel. We're good. And if he had a barrel in his hand, he would have been so much, like, just so mad. Brings out the Pidgey that has the energy to set up Call for Family, and now we're going to get 3 whole prizes ahead. Feeling great. Hey, nice Pidgey. Mind if I just send it to the Shadow Realm? And then this is when I contemplate what I need to do here, because I found a Luxray, but I have the Rare Candy. Do I do the Luxray play or not? And I don't, because I want the Luxray EX, because I want to try and remove the Rare Candies. Our random one-off Eri hits 2 Rare Candies out of his deck, and we're still looking for ways to remove more cards out of his hand. We also run Lost City, removing cards that are important. Apparently, he used our Ultra Ball right there and threw away a barrel, meaning he must have had a barrel in his hand at some point, and it might have been the one card in his hand when I knocked out the Bidoof. So I thought that was hilarious. My opponent's doing his best. He uses Arven, has no in the deck tools. Wondering if there was like a Forest Sealstone maybe he couldn't use, or something that there was a reason why he didn't do it. Wonderfully, all of our Pokemon are 1-cost retreat, or I have 2 switches in the deck and Prime Catcher. So this is just fantastic, because he wanted to Cleffa to set up his whole hand. Okay, that's nice and all, but also Luxray. He sets up 7. I think I just eat this and just go, you know what, I'll take 3 cards in my hand, that's fine. Because the rest of my hand wasn't really all that great. But it sets it up for 1 less card in his hand, and I can take something away from him. The only card, like, if I take away the Ultra Ball, it was the only search that he had for his evolution, so he needs to hit the Capturing Room on a heads in order to find the evolution that he's looking for his Dracloak, to make it Dragapult EX and start making a comeback, potentially. So that was awesome, because again, I controlled the board. Unfortunately, he still hits 50%, but nothing you could do about that, right? But I'm already 6 prizes to 2. Even if he's able to attack me, it won't take out Luxray because I have 310 HP. And it doesn't matter where he goes from here, right? I've thrown away 2 of his Rare Candies. I've taken away a lot of his draw power. I took away his draw power with the barrel. I've taken away so many things with just how strong the deck is. I'm also uninjured. No damages on my board. So there he goes. He gets the 1 energy on the Dreepy. We did see 2 energy in his hand. He brings in the Neo Upper Energy Dragapult for Phantom Dive. So this was also weird. I pointed out why he wouldn't do this, but he should have put 2 damage counters on both the Miraidons and then 2 more wherever else. It didn't matter, because then they would all be at 200 HP, and that allows Dragapult, which is his attacker in the deck, to knock out anything else. Again, like I said, though, it didn't really matter, so I decided Arven would be the better play, because we have the Prime Catcher into our good friend Mr. Bird, who's double weak, and Raikou can just take the knockout. But I didn't want to do that! Bring in the Luxray 500 damage! In one way or another, he kind of like set up a lethal for himself, so go me. But with that, you can have a general idea anyway of how strong the deck really is. If you guys like the video, make sure you like it, comment, and if you haven't already, subscribed. We're going to be putting out a whole bunch of videos on unique decks that we find playing these tournaments, even some from my own chat in my Discord. So if you guys aren't a part of the Discord, it's also in the description below. So I do hope you enjoyed the video, and I guess I will see you guys in the next one. Good night.